I heard my own son whisper in my ear, "Just a few more minutes, Mum. Then you'll sleep forever." Then he touched my oxygen tube. He thought I was unconscious. I was counting every heartbeat and every piece of evidence. When he finished signing the urgent inheritance papers, I opened my eyes, called his name, and the entire room froze. My name is Nora Whitfield, and at 64, I thought I knew everything about disappointment. I built Prairie Line Build Co. from nothing, just me, a drafting table, and a dream of affordable modular homes here in Stone Harbor, Colorado. 28 years of 16-hour days, missed dinners, and calloused hands. My husband Roger died 8 years ago from a heart attack, right in the middle of our biggest contract negotiation. I finished that meeting before I let myself cry. But nothing prepared me for the disappointment of realizing my own son wanted me dead. It started with pneumonia, real pneumonia, not the theatrical kind. January in Colorado had been brutal, and I'd pushed through 3 site inspections, despite a rattling cough that wouldn't quit. By the time I collapsed at the office, my assistant barely got me to St. Hartwell Medical Center before my oxygen levels crashed. The doctors said I was lucky. Another hour, and my lungs might have given out entirely. Dylan arrived at the hospital within 2 hours, which should have been my first warning. My 40-year-old son hadn't visited me in Stone Harbor for 6 months. Claiming his latest venture, some app development scheme, kept him too busy in Denver. His wife Mara followed, her sharp heels clicking against the hospital linoleum like a countdown clock. "Mum, you look terrible," Dylan said, pulling a chair close to my bed. The concern in his voice almost sounded genuine. Almost. "The doctors say you need complete rest. No stress, no business calls." I nodded weakly, the oxygen mask fogging with each labored breath. My daughter Grace had called from Rivermarch, Oregon, where she runs her architecture firm. She'd offered to fly in immediately, but Dylan had assured her he had everything under control. "Grace has that huge hotel project," he'd said. "I'm already here. Let me handle this." Handle. That word should have set off alarms. The questions started on day 3. Innocent enough at first, where did I keep the house insurance papers? What was the contact for our family lawyer? But then they became more specific, more urgent. Dylan sat beside my bed with a legal pad, jotting notes, while Mara stood by the window, texting furiously. "Mum, just in case something happens, I need to know about the business accounts," Dylan said, not meeting my eyes. The main operating account password, the backup signatures at Prairie National Bank. I mumbled something about everything being with Marla Quinn, my lawyer, but Dylan pressed harder. "Marla's out of town until next week. If there's an emergency with the company—" "What emergency?" I managed to wheeze. "Nothing specific. Just, the construction market's volatile right now. Early 2024 has been rough for everyone. If decisions need to be made quickly." Mara looked up from her phone. "The Riverside Development Group called yesterday. They're interested in acquisitions." I'd never heard of any Riverside Development Group. Prairie Line wasn't for sale. We'd just landed 2 municipal contracts that would carry us through the next 18 months. But I was too tired to argue, too focused on pulling air into my damaged lungs. "The safe combination," Dylan continued, pen poised. "The one in your home office." "Why?" "Property deeds, mom, insurance policies. We might need them for the hospital billing." His explanation came too fast, too rehearsed. I gave him false numbers. 4, 17, 38. He wrote them down carefully, and I watched Mara's lips move as she memorized them. They thought I was too sick to notice, too medicated to remember. But pneumonia hadn't touched my mind. Every word they spoke, every glance they exchanged. I filed away like evidence in a case I was building. "There's also the will," Dylan said on day 4, after the doctors had increased my oxygen and added a mild sedative to help me sleep. "Do you remember when you last updated it, where the original is stored?" "The will?" "Of course. In my existing will, everything was split equally between Dylan and Grace. The company, the properties, the investments Roger and I had built together. But Dylan didn't know about my doubts over the past year, how I'd watched him burn through his trust fund on failed ventures while Grace quietly built her own success. He didn't know I'd been thinking about restructuring everything, protecting the company from his debts. "Safety deposit box," I whispered, which was true. "Prairie National, and I'm still the executor, right?" He tried to sound casual. "I mean, as the eldest, both of you, I managed. You and Grace, together?" Something flickered across his face. Annoyance, frustration. Mara's fingers stopped moving across her phone screen. "That's complicated. Mum, with Grace in Oregon, maybe we should simplify things. I could handle a coughing fit saved me from answering. Real coughs, painful ones that brought the nurses running. But even through the chaos of machines beeping and medical staff checking vitals, I saw Dylan pull Mara aside. I saw her nod. I saw him glance back at me with an expression I'd never seen on my son's face before. Calculation. Cold. Pure calculation. That's when I knew. This wasn't about concern for my health or preparing for contingencies. This was about money, about Prairie Line's value, about debts I was beginning to suspect ran deeper than failed apps and bad investments. As the nurse adjusted my oxygen, I made a decision. I would pretend to be sicker than I was. I would listen. I would wait. And I would find out exactly what my son was planning. The digital clock on the wall read 3:12 a.m. when I heard the door to my hospital room ease open. The hallway light cast a long shadow across the floor, Dylan's familiar silhouette, but moving with unfamiliar stealth. I kept my breathing steady, deep, the way someone heavily sedated would breathe. The oxygen mask helped hide any involuntary facial movements. He stood by my bed for a full minute, just watching. I could feel his presence, smell his cologne, the expensive one Mara bought him last Christmas. Finally, he leaned close to the machines, monitoring my vitals. 240,000, he whispered, and I realized he was on his phone, the screen's glow reflecting off the metal bed rail. "No, I'm telling you, she's completely out. The sedatives they gave her. Yeah, I'm looking at the chart now. My medical chart. He'd taken it from the slot at the foot of my bed. The company's worth at least 2.4 million, maybe more if we package it with the real estate holdings." His voice grew more confident as he paced to the window. "Grace doesn't know shit about construction. She's been in Oregon for 5 years. She'll accept whatever valuation we give her." Grace. My daughter, who'd called 3 times today, who'd wanted to fly in despite her project deadlines. Dylan had assured her I was stable, improving, that there was no need to disrupt her life. "The oxygen thing," Dylan continued, and my blood chilled. "Yeah. I looked it up. If the flow gets disrupted at her levels, no, they can't trace that. Equipment fails all the time in hospitals, especially with older machinery. He moved back toward my bed, and I forced myself to remain still as his hand reached for the oxygen tube. Not pulling it out, just testing it, seeing how loose the connection was, how easy it would be to create a tragic accident. Tomorrow's no good, too much staff, but the night after, they're short-staffed on Wednesdays. The charge nurse takes her break at 3:30. Wednesday, 3 days from now. I've got papers ready. Power of attorney for medical decisions, temporary executor authorization for the estate, all standard forms you can download. If she's incapacitated but not dead yet, I can start moving assets immediately. By the time anyone questions it, the door opened again, flooding the room with harsh hallway fluorescence. Dylan jerked his hand back from the oxygen tube. Mr. Whitfield. Tasha Linwood stood in the doorway, her 20 years of nursing experience evident in the way her eyes took in everything Dylan's position. His hand near the equipment, the chart in his other hand. It's past visiting hours. Your mother needs her rest. I was just worried. Couldn't sleep. Dylan's salesman's smile appeared, the one he'd perfected during his failed real estate period. You know how it is. She's all the family I've got nearby. Tasha moved into the room with practiced efficiency, checking my monitors, adjusting the oxygen flow that Dylan had been touching. Her O2 levels dropped slightly. Did you notice anything unusual? No, nothing. Maybe the tube shifted. Maybe. Tasha's tone was neutral, but her fingers moved across the equipment, checking every connection. Then she did something that Dylan couldn't see from his angle. She looked directly at me. My eyes were closed, but I sensed her attention, the way she studied my face. Mr. Whitfield, I need to update her chart. Hospital policy requires me to log all after-hours visits, especially when there's been an equipment irregularity. Equipment irregularity. The oxygen flow sensor triggered a minor alert at 3:14, 2 minutes after you entered. She pulled out a tablet, typing quickly. I'll need to file an incident report. Standard procedure. Dylan's voice tightened. Is that really necessary, I mean? I barely touched. Touched what? Tasha looked up sharply. Nothing. I meant, I was just checking she was breathing okay. I see. She continued typing, and I caught a glimpse of her screen's reflection in the window. She wasn't just filing an incident report. She was documenting everything timestamps, Dylan's exact position, his statements. Your mother is scheduled for a respiratory assessment at 6 a.m., Tasha said, placing the tablet back in her pocket. Dr. Rourke will want to know about any overnight changes. I'd suggest you get some rest. Mr. Whitfield, come back during regular visiting hours. It wasn't a suggestion. Dylan left, but not before casting one last look at me, then at the oxygen equipment. Tasha waited until his footsteps faded down the hallway before she moved closer to my bed. She adjusted my blanket, and as she did, she whispered so quietly I almost missed it. I know you're awake, Mrs. Whitfield. Blink once if you need help. I blinked. She nodded, her expression never changing as she continued her routine checks. 20 years I've been doing this. I've seen sons and daughters crying over parents who beat them, and I've seen children counting inheritance money while their parents are still warm. Your boy, he's the second type. She pulled out her tablet again, angling it so I could see. The incident report was thorough time-stamped photos of the oxygen connections, Dylan's exact words transcribed. a note about unauthorized chart access. This goes straight to Dr. Rourke and hospital security, she said. But if you want real protection, you need to tell someone. Blink once for yes. I blinked. Can you speak at all? Don't strain yourself. Just whisper. He wants... I barely breathed the words. To kill me. Tasha's jaw tightened, but she kept her professional composure. I suspected as much. Wednesday night. He said I heard that part. She glanced at the door, then back at me. Mrs. Whitfield, I'm going to recommend increased monitoring. Camera surveillance for your safety. But you need legal help too. Is there someone you trust? Someone who isn't your son? Lawyer, I whispered. Marla Quinn? I'll help you call her in the morning. For now. Pretend you're still sedated. Let him think his plan is working. She squeezed my hand gently. You're not alone in this. I've got your back. As she left, I lay in the dark, counting heartbeats and planning my own counterstrike. Dylan thought he was hunting sleeping prey. He was wrong. At 5:45 a.m., before the morning shift change, Tasha returned with a borrowed cell phone. 5 minutes, she whispered, helping me dial Marla's private number, the one she'd given me 15 years ago when we'd first met, over a contract dispute that became a friendship. Marla Quinn. Her voice was alert, despite the early hour. Lawyers and insomniacs. We'd joked once. Marla, it's Nora. My voice was barely a rasp. Nora. My God. Dylan said you were dying. That's his plan. I need you at St. Hartwell Medical Center, 6th floor. Come in through the staff entrance. Tasha Linwood will meet you. There was no hesitation. 40 minutes. She made it in 35, dressed in a nurse's friend's borrowed scrubs that Tasha had arranged. To anyone watching, she was just another medical professional making rounds, but the briefcase she carried contained legal weapons sharper than any scalpel. Jesus. Nora. Marla's usually composed face showed genuine shock as she took in my condition, the oxygen mask, the IVs, the monitors. Dylan told me you were recovering well. He called 2 days ago asking about the process for emergency asset management if you became incapacitated. He's planning to kill me Wednesday night, I said flatly. Tasha heard everything. He's got $240,000 in debts. Wants to sell Prairie Line for $2.4 million before Grace finds out. Marla's expression hardened into something I'd seen destroy opponents in courtrooms. That little bastard. I never did trust him after that stunt he pulled with the forged checks 3 years ago. You knew about that. I know everything that touches your finances. Nora, I just respected your decision to handle it as a family matter. She pulled out her laptop. But attempted murder changes the game. What do you need? Everything. New will, leaving it all to Grace. Medical power of attorney to her alone. And I want every asset locked down so tight Dylan couldn't access a penny with a court order and a crowbar. Done. I'll also file injunctions against any transfers or loans using your name or the company as collateral. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. What about criminal charges? Not yet. I need more evidence. Tasha's incident report is good. But you need him on camera trying to kill you. Marla's smile was predatory. Lucky for you, I play poker with the hospital's chief of security. Jonas Pike owes me $3,000 and a favor. Dr. Evan Rourke arrived at 7 a.m. for his rounds. Tasha had briefed him, showing him the incident report and her concerns about equipment tampering. He was younger than I'd expected for a department head, maybe 45, with the kind of careful precision that suggested he'd seen enough medical disasters to believe in prevention. "Mrs. Whitfield, I'm going to be direct," he said after examining me. "Your son asked me yesterday about your prognosis. Specifically, he wanted to know if you might slip into a coma and what the chances of recovery would be if that happened." "What did you tell him?" "The truth that your pneumonia is serious but treatable, that there's no medical reason to expect a coma." He paused. He seemed disappointed. "Doctor, I need to appear worse than I am. Can you help me?" He considered this. "I can adjust your medication to include a mild sedative that will make you appear less responsive. Nothing that would actually harm you, but enough to maintain an appearance of deterioration. I'll document it as addressing agitation and ensuring rest. And surveillance. Given the incident report and security concerns, I'm ordering video monitoring of your room. 2 cameras, one obvious by the door, one discreet near your bed. It's within my authority for patient safety." He made notes on his tablet. "Mrs. Whitfield, I took an oath to do no harm. That includes not letting harm come to my patients from any source." By noon, Jonas Pike had installed the cameras personally. He was a large man, former military, with hands that could probably break someone in half, but handled the delicate equipment with surprising gentleness. "Mrs. Quinn explained the situation," he said quietly, showing me a small tablet. "This links to both cameras, live feed, full audio. Everything backs up to our secure server with redundant off-site storage. This button here," he pointed to a red icon, "sends an immediate alert to security, nurses' station, and Dr. Rourke simultaneously." How obvious are the cameras? The door camera is visible, standard security. But this one, he indicated a tiny lens hidden in the medical equipment array, is our ACE, HD quality, night vision, picks up whispers from 15 feet. Marla returned that afternoon during regular visiting hours, dressed normally now, carrying documents in a medical folder that looked like standard hospital paperwork. "Your new will," she said quietly, producing papers. "Grace inherits everything. Prairie Line, the Stone Harbor house, investment accounts, even your jewelry. I've added a specific clause: any debts incurred by Dylan or Mara using your name or assets as collateral are null and void, and attempting such constitutes fraud." "What about Dylan?" "He gets exactly $1. It's called intentional disinheritance. Prevents him from claiming you forgot him." She pulled out more papers. Medical directives naming Grace as sole decision-maker. Financial power of attorney to me as primary, Grace as secondary. Effective only upon your written consent, or if 2 independent doctors declare you incapacitated. Dylan is specifically excluded. I signed everything, my hand shaking partially from weakness, partially from rage. "There's more," Marla said. "I had my investigator do some digging. Dylan's debts are worse than $240,000. There's a second mortgage on his Denver house Mara doesn't know about. Credit cards maxed out in both their names. And here's the interesting part: he's been in contact with a development group in Laramie Ridge, Riverside Development. Except Riverside Development doesn't exist. It's a shell company registered to Mara's brother. They're planning to sell my company to themselves at a discount." "Exactly. Then flip it for full value and pocket the difference." Marla's expression was grim. "Nora, I also had someone check your home office. Your friend Harriet let us in. We found loan applications with your forged signature. He's been practicing. And there's a draft purchase agreement for Prairie Line, dated for next Thursday. Thursday? The day after he planned to kill me. I want him destroyed, I said, surprised by the cold clarity in my voice. Not just stopped, destroyed. Then we let him try, Marla said. We document everything. And when he makes his move, we bury him with it. As she left, I settled back into my bed, adjusting the oxygen mask, practicing my labored breathing. The trap was set. The cameras were rolling. Now I just had to survive until Wednesday night. The legal transformation of my life happened in careful stages, each document a nail in Dylan's coffin. Marla worked with surgical precision, understanding that we weren't just protecting assets, we were documenting an attempted murder conspiracy. Monday morning, she filed the new will with the county clerk, time-stamped and sealed. Grace was now the sole beneficiary of everything I'd built. The $1 bequest to Dylan was spelled out in humiliating detail. To my son, Dylan Whitfield, who has shown his true character in my time of need, I leave $1, this being intentional and considered. I've also frozen every account you have signing authority on, Marla explained during her next visit, maintaining the pretense of reading me get-well cards while Dylan lurked in the hallway. Created new ones at Mountain Trust Bank, not Prairie National where Dylan has contacts. Your social security deposits, pension. Everything's been rerouted. The medical power of attorney went further than just naming Grace. It specifically stated that Dylan Whitfield was to have no access to medical information, no decision-making authority. And this was Marla's touch, no right to visit without express written permission from the primary physician. Can that hold up? I whispered. With Dr. Rourke's documentation of security concerns, absolutely. Tuesday brought discoveries that turned my stomach. Harriet, my friend of 30 years who'd been watering my plants and collecting mail, arrived with a box of documents hidden under a bouquet of roses. Nora, you need to see these, she said, after checking that Dylan wasn't around. I found them in your desk drawer, the locked one. The lock was broken. Loan applications with my forged signature. Not just one or two, but 15 different documents dated over the past 7 months. Dylan had been practicing my signature, each iteration getting closer to the real thing. The most recent ones were nearly perfect. There's more, Harriet continued, pulling out printed emails. Your computer was logged into. He's been in your email, Nora, sending messages to contractors, checking bid amounts, even drafting a letter to Grace saying you wanted to step back from the business. The letter to Grace was masterful in its manipulation. Written by me. It explained how Dylan had been helping with the company, how he'd shown real growth and maturity, how I was considering making him CEO. It was dated for Thursday, the day after my planned death. Marla photographed everything, building our evidence file. This shows premeditation going back months. He's been planning this since at least last summer. What about the Riverside development sale? I've got injunctions ready to file the moment he tries anything. But Nora, I found something else. Mara's brother, the one behind the shell company. He's been investigated twice for elder financial abuse. Never prosecuted, the victims died before trial. The words hung in the air like poison gas. This wasn't Dylan's first attempt at something like this. It was a family business. Dr. Rourke came by that afternoon with an update. I've been reviewing your previous medical records, he said, loud enough for anyone listening to hear. Your recovery is slower than hoped. I'm adjusting your medications to ensure proper rest. Then, quieter. The sedative will make you appear barely conscious. You'll be fully aware, but will seem deeply compromised. I'm also adding something that will slow your heart rate slightly, nothing dangerous, but it will make the monitors show distress if someone disrupts your oxygen. Like an alarm system, I said. Exactly. The moment your O2 drops, every monitor in the nurses' station will scream. Jonas Pike arrived with a software update for the surveillance system. New feature, he said, showing me the tablet. Motion activation with automatic backup to cloud storage. Even if someone destroyed the hospital servers, we'd have copies off-site within seconds. He'd also added something else, a direct link to his personal phone. I'll be on duty Wednesday night. The moment you hit that alert, I'm 40 seconds away. That evening, Dylan visited with Mara. They brought dinner from my favorite restaurant, playing The Devoted Family. Mum, you look tired, Dylan said, studying my half-closed eyes. The nurses said you've been sleeping most of the day. I mumbled something incoherent, letting my head loll slightly. Mara leaned over to Dylan, not quite whispering, "She's worse than yesterday." The doctor said her respiratory function is declining. Dylan replied, louder, as if I couldn't hear. They might need to consider other options soon. What kind of options? Mara asked, playing her part in their rehearsed conversation. Comfort care, making her comfortable for whatever time is left. They were establishing a narrative for the staff, planting seeds that my death wouldn't be unexpected. I wanted to open my eyes fully, to scream that I could hear every calculating word. Instead, I let out a weak cough and appeared to drift off. "We should go," Dylan said. "Let her rest." As they gathered their things, I caught Mara checking her phone. She showed the screen to Dylan, a calendar notification for Riverside closing on Thursday at 2 p.m. They were so confident, so sure their plan would work. After they left, Tasha came in for her night shift. She'd volunteered to work Wednesday too, despite it being her usual day off. "How are you holding up?" she asked softly. "Angry," I admitted. "So angry I could spit nails." "Good. Anger keeps you sharp. Grief makes you weak." She adjusted my monitors. "Your daughter called again today. Dylan told her you were having some procedures tomorrow and couldn't talk." "What kind of procedures?" He was vague, but he made it sound serious enough that she's booking a flight for Thursday morning. Thursday? After I was supposed to be dead. He'd probably call her Wednesday night with the tragic news. The grieving son who'd done everything he could. "Tasha, what makes someone like this?" I asked. I raised him. Same house. Same values as Grace. Where did I go wrong? "You didn't," she said firmly. "Some people are just broken. Mrs. Whitfield. They see everyone as either useful or obstacles. You've been useful funding his failures, bailing him out. Now your death is more useful than your life." That night, I lay awake practicing my performance for tomorrow. The barely conscious mother. The victim. The bait. But underneath, I prepared for war. Every document filed, every camera positioned, every ally briefed. Dylan thought he was walking into a hospital room to commit murder. He was walking into a courtroom where I was judge, jury, and prosecutor. And I'd already reached my verdict. Wednesday morning arrived with a clarity that felt like weapon steel. Marla came early, carrying a folder that contained the complete anatomy of my son's betrayal. Final tally, she said, spreading papers across my bedside table. 15 forged documents over 7 months. Total attempted theft, $3.1 million. That includes Prairie Line's value, your investment accounts, and the house in Stone Harbor. 3.1 million, I repeated. He told Mara 2.4. He's stealing from her too. The extra 700,000 was going into an account she doesn't know about. Marla pulled out another document. But here's the smoking gun, a life insurance policy he took out on you 6 months ago. $2 million, with him as sole beneficiary. You supposedly signed it. But look at the signature. It was good. If I hadn't known better, I might have believed I'd signed it myself after a few drinks. But the N in Nora had a flourish I never used, and the W in Whitfield was too narrow. The insurance company, already notified, fraud investigation pending. But Nora, there's something else. She pulled out printed screenshots. Dylan's been searching some very specific things online. Oxygen deprivation death timeline. Hospital equipment failure statistics. How long before brain death without oxygen? From his home computer. His phone? He doesn't know we can subpoena browser history. She showed me another page. He also searched Contesting Wills, Colorado, and How to Prove Mental Incapacity Elderly Parent. So even if the murder failed, he had a backup plan claim I was mentally incompetent when I changed the will. What about the shell company? Riverside Development, LLC, registered in Wyoming for tax purposes. Mara's brother, Thomas Henley, is listed as CEO. They've already drafted the purchase agreement buying Prairie Line for $800,000, with plans to flip it immediately to a legitimate developer for $2.8 million. $800,000. The insult was almost worse than the attempted murder. I built that company with my bare hands. The agreement is dated for tomorrow. 2 p.m. Requires only Dylan's signature as acting executor under emergency provisions. He's already got a notary lined up. Guess who? Thomas Henley is also a notary. The pieces were all connected. A spider web of greed with my death at the center. Dr. Rourke arrived for rounds, speaking loud enough for the hallway. Mrs. Whitfield's condition remains critical. We're maintaining comfort protocols. Then, quietly, are you ready for tonight? Ready. I've adjusted the monitors. The moment your oxygen drops below 90%, every alarm in this wing will trigger. I've also scheduled myself for an emergency consultation at 3:20. Puts me in the building when he's supposed to act. Jonas Pike was next, running final surveillance checks. Everything's recording perfectly. I've got backup batteries on all cameras in case he tries to cut power. The feed goes to 3 locations, hospital security, my phone, and a secure cloud server that uploads in real time. What about admissibility for court? Chain of custody fully documented. Timestamps verified by 3 independent systems. This would hold up anywhere. The day crawled by with excruciating slowness. Dylan visited at lunch, bringing flowers and performing concern for the nurses. How's she doing? He asked Tasha, who was checking my IV. Sleeping, mostly. The medications keep her comfortable. That's good. That's what matters. He touched my hand, and it took everything I had not to jerk away. Mum, if you can hear me, I love you. Liar. The word burned in my throat. He left after 20 minutes, but Mara stayed behind, pretending to arrange the flowers while texting furiously. I caught glimpses of her screen coordinating with her brother, confirming the notary appointment, checking flight times to the Cayman Islands. They were planning to run, take the money, and disappear before Grace even knew what happened. That evening, Marla made one last visit. Everything's filed and ready. The moment he makes his move, I can have law enforcement here in minutes. The district attorney is a friend. She's already reviewed our evidence informally. What did she say? Attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud, elder abuse. He's looking at 25 to life. She squeezed my hand. Nora, you don't have to do this. We have enough to arrest him now. No, I want him caught in the act. I want it undeniable. She nodded, understanding. Then give him hell. By 11 p.m., the hospital had quieted to its nighttime rhythm. Tasha made sure to mention loudly at the nurse's station that she'd be taking her break at 3:30 a.m., that the ward would be short-staffed, that Mrs. Whitfield in room 614 was stable and shouldn't need checking until 4. Setting the stage. At midnight, I reviewed everything on the tablet Jonas had left. Camera angles perfect. Audio crystal clear. The red alert button glowed like a promise of justice. Next to it, he'd taped a note. Give him enough rope. We need clear intent. 1 a.m. passed. Then 2. At 2:45, I heard footsteps in the hallway, not the soft-soled shoes of nurses, but the deliberate steps of someone trying to be quiet. They paused outside my door. I slowed my breathing, let my mouth fall slightly open, made myself the picture of vulnerable unconsciousness. At 2:58 the door opened. Dylan entered alone. No Mara this time. He wore dark clothes and surgical gloves. He'd thought this through. He stood by my bed, watching, waiting. The monitors showed my steady, sedated vital signs. "Mum," he whispered. No response. "Mum, can you hear me?" I remained still. He pulled out his phone, checking something. Then he reached into his pocket and produced papers, the power of attorney forms, the emergency executor authorizations, the Riverside purchase agreement. "Just need to get these signed first," he muttered, pulling out a pen. He was going to forge my signature right here, next to my unconscious body, before he killed me. The arrogance of it was breathtaking. He signed my name on document after document, each forgery captured in high definition by Jonas's cameras. Then he carefully placed the papers in his bag and turned his attention to the oxygen equipment. "I'm sorry, Mum," he said, not sounding sorry at all. "But you've had a good life. 70 years is respectable." I was 64. He couldn't even get my age right while murdering me. His hands moved to the oxygen tube, and I tensed invisibly, my finger finding the alert button. Not yet. Need clear intent. The company should have been mine anyway. Dylan continued, starting to loosen the connection. Dad always said the son carries on the family business. Grace has her own thing. This is what you would want, if you were thinking clearly. The connection loosened more. The monitor showed my oxygen dropping 95%, 93, 90. Alarms erupted like the last trumpet. Every monitor in the room screamed. Lights flashed. The sound was devastating, disorienting. Dylan jerked back, frantically trying to reattach the tube. Shit, shit, shit. The door burst open. Jonas Pike filled the doorway, with Dr. Rourke and Tasha right behind him. "Step away from the patient," Jonas commanded. The tube came loose. I was trying to help. Step away. The evidence was mathematical in its precision, each piece building an equation that equaled my son's guilt. Jonas Pike pulled up the surveillance footage on his tablet, while Dylan stood frozen, still wearing the surgical gloves that damned him. 302A, you enter the room, Jonas narrated, showing the footage to Dr. Rourke. 304, you remove documents from your bag. 305 through 311, you forge signatures on 6 documents. We have close-ups of each one. 312, you approach the oxygen equipment. I want a lawyer, Dylan said, his voice cracking. You'll need one, Marla said, entering the room with 2 police officers. She'd been waiting in the nurses' station, watching everything unfold. Attempted murder, forgery, conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse should I continue. The math in my head was different from Dylan's $240,000 in debt. I was calculating 28 years of building Prairie Line, 16-hour days, missed holidays, the arthritis in my hands from years of drafting blueprints, all of it nearly stolen for $800,000 in a sham sale. Mrs. Whitfield? Dr. Rourke said loudly, maintaining the pretense. Your oxygen has been restored. You're safe now. I kept my eyes closed, but my mind was cataloguing everything Dylan's panicked breathing. The rustle of papers as Marla showed the officers our evidence, the click of handcuffs being prepared. This is insane, Dylan protested. I was checking on her. The alarm went off. After you disconnected the oxygen, Tasha interrupted. She pulled up her own documentation. I have 3 previous incidents logged. January 18th at 3:14 a.m. You were found tampering with equipment. January 19th. You asked about oxygen deprivation effects. January 20th. You inquired about sedation levels and whether patients could hear while unconscious. Each date, each time, each conversation, all documented, all building the case. Jonas added more footage. Here's Mr. Whitfield on Monday, checking camera angles, Tuesday, timing the nurses' rounds, and my favourite this afternoon. He actually Googled how long before brain death without oxygen in the hospital parking lot. On the hospital's Wi-Fi. The stupidity of it almost made me open my eyes. He'd planned a murder using the victim's own company Wi-Fi. Where's Mara? One officer asked. Probably at home, packing, Marla said. We have surveillance on her too. She booked 2 tickets to Grand Cayman for tomorrow afternoon. One way. Dylan's face went white. Even Mara was abandoning him. Dr. Rourke stepped forward with his medical assessment. Based on the oxygen disruption time and Mrs. Whitfield's compromised respiratory state, she would have suffered irreversible brain damage within 4 more minutes, death within 7. This was attempted murder with medical knowledge aforethought. The precision of their testimony was beautiful. Every professional speaking their expertise, building an unbreakable chain of evidence. The forged documents, Marla continued, laying them out, include a power of attorney dated today, giving Dylan full control of his mother's medical and financial decisions, an emergency executor appointment for her estate, and this purchase agreement, selling Prairie Line Build Co. to Riverside Development LLC for $800,000. That's a legitimate offer, Dylan said desperately. Mom was considering it. Your mother has been sedated for 3 days. How could she consider anything? Marla pulled out her final piece. Also, Riverside Development LLC is registered to Thomas Henley, Mara's brother, the same Thomas Henley who's been investigated twice for elder financial abuse. The room went silent, except for the steady beep of my heart monitor still playing unconscious, still listening to my son's world collapse. There's more, Jonas said, pulling up another file. Mr. Whitfield took out a $2 million life insurance policy on his mother 6 months ago. Forged consent. Forged signature. The insurance company has already opened a fraud investigation. $2 million on my death, plus 2.4 from selling the company, minus the 800,000 to the shell company. Dylan stood to make over $3 million from murdering me. The math of matricide. Dylan Whitfield, the first officer said formally. You're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. You have the right to remain silent. Mum, Dylan suddenly shouted. Mum, tell them this is a mistake. I was trying to help you. I remained still, counting my heartbeats, savoring each word of the Miranda rights being read. She's conscious, Dylan said wildly. I know she is. She's faking. She's been faking this whole time. Mr. Whitfield, Dr. Rourke said coldly. Your mother has been sedated and suffering from severe pneumonia. Your accusations are simply another attempt to manipulate the situation. They started leading him out, but Dylan twisted back. The house combination is 4, 17, 38. She told me she's conscious. Those are the wrong numbers, Marla said quietly. She gave you false information because she suspected you were planning something. The real combination is in her legal files, which you're specifically excluded from accessing. The look on Dylan's face, shock, rage, the dawning comprehension that I'd been playing him all along was worth every moment of this horrible week. You bitch, he snarled at my seemingly unconscious form. You lying, manipulative. Threatening a witness, the officer said, pulling him harder. As they dragged him away, Dylan shouted one last thing. Grace doesn't know anything about construction. She'll run Prairie Line into the ground. You're destroying Dad's legacy. Roger's legacy. My husband, who died 8 years ago, would have been horrified by what our son became. Roger, who taught both our children that family meant protection, not profit. The room emptied except for Tasha, Dr. Rourke, and Marla. They stood quietly, waiting. They're gone? Tasha finally said. Police, Dylan, everyone except us. I kept my eyes closed for another moment, gathering myself, preparing for what came next. Mrs. Whitfield, Dr. Rourke said gently. Nora, you can open your eyes now. I opened my eyes. The fluorescent lights seemed brighter after days of pretending to drift in pharmaceutical haze. I looked at each face, Tasha's grim satisfaction, Dr. Rourke's professional concern, Marla's predatory triumph, and then I spoke my son's name. Dylan Whitfield. My voice was rough from the oxygen tube, hoarse from disuse, but it cut through the air like a blade through silk. Get him back here, I said. I want him to see me. I want him to know. Marla was already calling Jonas. Bring him back, just for a moment. They returned 3 minutes later, the longest 3 minutes of my life. Dylan was in handcuffs now, his expensive shirt rumpled, his carefully styled hair mussed from struggle. The officers held him just inside the doorway. I sat up in bed. The effort cost me my lungs were still damaged, still struggling, but I forced myself upright, forced my eyes to focus with surgical precision on my son's face. Dylan Whitfield, I said again, each syllable deliberate. His face went through a symphony of emotions, shock, rage, fear, a child's instinctive hope that mother would save him. Then back to rage when he realized I wouldn't. You were awake, he whispered, the whole time. Every second, every word about the 240,000 you owe, every detail about selling my company for 2.4 million, every lie you told your sister. I paused, gathering breath and strength. I heard you practice killing me. I wasn't 312, I interrupted. You loosened the oxygen connection. You watched my O2 levels drop. You were waiting for me to die. Mara burst through the door then, her perfect composure finally shattered. Dylan, don't say anything. I've called Brenner Associates, the law firm that handled your brother's elder abuse cases, Marla interjected smoothly. They'll have their hands full. We have evidence of your involvement too, Mrs. Whitfield. The Riverside Development documents have your electronic signature. Mara's mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. I kept my focus on Dylan. You just signed papers giving you power over my medical decisions and my estate, forged my signature while I lay here dying. Jonas, show him. Jonas held up his tablet, the HD footage playing. There was Dylan, clear as daylight, signing my name with practiced ease. The camera had caught every stroke of the pen, every calculated movement. That's not... I was just... Dylan's excuses died in his throat. You told Mara the company was worth 2.4 million. I continued, my voice gaining strength with each word. But you were selling it to her brother for 800,000, stealing from your wife while murdering your mother. That's the son I raised. You were going to give everything to Grace anyway. Dylan exploded. Perfect Grace with her perfect career and her perfect life. I'm the one who stayed close. I'm the one who spent 40,000 on a boat you used twice, who lost 60,000 on cryptocurrency, who forged my signature on loan applications. I pulled out the folder Harriet had brought, spreading the evidence across my hospital blanket. 7 months of forgeries, each one a little better than the last. Practice makes perfect. Right. Dylan's legs seemed to give out. Only the officer's grip kept him standing. But here's what really interests me, I said, pulling out the life insurance policy. $2 million on my death. You took this out 6 months ago. This wasn't desperation. Dylan, this was a business plan. The debts are yours, every penny. The new will makes that explicitly clear. Any debt you've incurred using my name or assets void, fraudulent, criminal. I turned to Mara. Grand Cayman? One-way tickets for tomorrow at 4:15 p. Were you going to tell him? Or just disappear with the money? Mara and Dylan looked at each other. And in that moment, I saw their relationship die. Trust between thieves, shattered by truth. She said it was your idea, Mara whispered to Dylan. The insurance policy was your idea. You're the one who found Thomas. Dylan shot back. Your brother. Your shell company. Both of you. Shut up. One of the officers said. Save it for your lawyers. I reached for the tablet Jonas had given me, brought up the video again. Would you like to see my favourite part? Dylan 3:14 OM. You lean over me and whisper. Just a few more minutes? Mum? Then you'll sleep forever. You thought I was unconscious, but I was counting every second. The room was silent, except for the monitors still tracking my damaged but steady vitals. 28 years I built Prairie Line, I said. Your father and I started with nothing. A drafting table in a garage. Our first contract was for 3 houses. 3. Now we build entire subdivisions, affordable homes for working families. That's Roger's legacy, not money, but homes where children grow up safe. I know what the company means. No? You know what it's worth. There's a difference. I looked at Grace's photo on my phone. My daughter, who'd flown out tomorrow thinking she'd be attending my funeral. Grace understands building something. You only understand taking it. I turned to Dr. Rourke. How long before brain death? Dr. Dillon Googled it. But tell him what would have really happened. 4 minutes until irreversible brain damage. 7 until death. But those 4 minutes? Mr. Whitfield, your mother would have been conscious, but unable to move or speak. She would have known she was dying. She would have known her son was killing her. I want a deal, Dillon said suddenly. I have information. About Thomas. About other things. That's not our department, the officer said. Take it up with the DA. As they started to lead him out again, Dillon made one last desperate play. Mum, please. I'm your son. Your blood. Dad wouldn't want this. You know Dad wouldn't want this. I met his eyes one final time. Your father died of a heart attack 8 years ago. Stress from bailing you out of your third failed business. So don't you dare invoke Roger's name while wearing handcuffs for trying to murder me. Mrs. Whitfield, the second officer said. We need to process him, but you'll need to come to the station when you're released. Make a formal statement. I'll be there, I said. Then, looking directly at Dillon, with every piece of evidence, every forged document, every recorded word, you planned to bury me, son. Instead, you buried yourself. The prosecutor, Catherine Chen, no relation to anyone Dillon knew, laid out the charges with the precision of a surgeon. 25 to life for attempted murder, 15 years for elder abuse, 10 for fraud exceeding 1 million. The sentences would run consecutively, not concurrently. Dillon would be 70 before he saw parole. Your son tried to negotiate, Catherine told me after the arraignment. Offered to testify against his wife and brother-in-law for a reduced sentence. And they offered first? Apparently, Mara kept recordings of Dillon planning everything. She was building her own insurance policy. No honor among thieves, even married ones. The police had arrested Mara at the airport, her suitcases packed with my jewelry pieces she'd stolen from my house while I was hospitalized, thinking I'd never noticed them missing from a dead woman's estate. Thomas Henley was picked up at his office, shredding documents that had already been backed up on our servers. Mrs. Whitfield, the officer said, returning to the hospital room. We need you to identify these items. He spread out the papers Dillon had signed, the forged power of attorney, the fraudulent executor appointment, the purchase agreement for Prairie Line, each one now marked as evidence, each forgery another nail in his legal coffin. That's my name, I said, pointing to each signature. But I didn't write any of them. You can see on the video Dillon signed them at 3:05, 3:07, 3:09 while I was supposedly unconscious. Jonas had given them everything: the surveillance footage, the audio recordings, the timestamps that proved premeditation. Dr. Rourke provided medical testimony about the oxygen deprivation attempt. Tasha submitted her incident reports going back days. But the killing blow came from Dillon himself. Your son kept a journal, the second officer said, producing a leather notebook. On his laptop. Password protected, but our tech team got in. He documented everything: research on inheritance law, practice signatures, even a timeline for your death and the estate settlement. He'd titled the file, Project Independence. My independence from life. His from debt. "There's one more thing," the officer said. "Your daughter is here." Grace rushed in, her architect's precision replaced by raw emotion. She looked exhausted. She'd taken a red-eye from Oregon the moment Marla called. "Mom," she breathed, gripping my hand. My God. Mom. "I'm okay," I said, though my lungs still rattled with each breath. "I'm alive. Marla told me everything. Dylan. I can't believe Dylan. He was desperate. Desperate people do desperate things." "Stop." Grace's voice was sharp. "Don't you dare make excuses for him. He tried to murder you. He tried to steal everything you and Dad built." She was right. The mother in me wanted to find explanations, reasons, some childhood trauma I'd missed. But there was none. Dylan had simply chosen greed over love, money over mother. "The company is yours now," I said. "All of it. The new will is ironclad." "I don't care about the company. I care about you." But I knew she'd run Prairie Line well. She had her father's integrity and my stubbornness, a combination that built things to last. The officers finished their documentation, packed their evidence, and prepared to leave. "The trial will take months," one warned. "But with this evidence, conviction is certain." "Good," I said. "Let him sit in jail and count the days." I counted every heartbeat while he tried to stop them. As they led Dylan down the hospital corridor for the final time, past the nurses' station where Tasha watched with grim satisfaction, past Dr. Rourke, who'd saved my life in more ways than one, I heard him say something to the officers. "She never loved me. She always preferred Grace." Even now, he was rewriting history, making himself the victim. The officers put him in the elevator. The doors closed. My son was gone, not dead, as he'd planned for me, but gone from my life as surely as if he'd succeeded. "Mrs. Whitfield," Jonas said, entering with his tablet one last time. "I need to show you something." He pulled up the audio from 312, the moment Dylan had whispered about my eternal sleep. But he'd enhanced it, isolated something I'd missed in my fury. In the background, barely audible, was Mara's voice from the hallway. "Hurry up. The nurse comes back in 18 minutes. They'd timed it together, planned it together, would have celebrated together over my corpse." "She gets 15 years minimum," Jonas said. "Thomas Henley, too. The whole family's going down." I thought about justice, about revenge, about the thin line between them. I'd wanted Dylan destroyed, and he was. But there was no satisfaction in it, only a hollow ache where maternal love used to live. "Mom," Grace said softly, "what are you thinking?" "That I have one good child out of two. 50% success rate. Some parents don't even get that." Marla arrived with final papers, victim impact statements, insurance fraud documentation, civil suits to recover Dylan's debts from his personal assets. "He'll have nothing when he gets out," she said. "If he gets out." "Good," I said, signing each document with my real signature, the one Dylan had practiced but never quite perfected. Let him understand what it's like to truly start from nothing. The room emptied, except for Grace and me. She held my hand while my oxygen flowed properly. No murderous fingers on the tube. No whispered countdowns to death. "What will you tell people?" she asked. "About Dylan. The truth. That my son tried to kill me for money. that blood doesn't always mean family. That sometimes the child you raised becomes a stranger with your eyes. 3 days later, I was released from St. Hartwell Medical Center. Grace drove me home to Stone Harbor, to the house Dylan had tried to steal, past the Prairie Line Build Co. office where he'd never work again. The safe in my office was still locked with the real combination. Not 4, 17, 38, but 0, 8, 14. The date Roger died. The day I learned to survive alone. Inside were the real documents will, deeds, contracts, all safe, all protected, all mine to give to the child who deserved them. That night, I sat in Roger's old chair, breathing carefully through still damaged lungs, and thought about Dylan in his cell. Was he thinking of me, planning more lies for his lawyer, or just counting dollars he'd never touch? I closed my eyes and heard his voice again. Just a few more minutes. Mom? Then you'll sleep forever. But I hadn't slept. I'd stayed awake, counted every breath. And when the moment came, I'd opened my eyes and spoken his name. Dylan Whitfield. My son's name had become his confession, his verdict, his sentence. The oxygen tube remained beside my chair. I'd need it for weeks, while my lungs healed. But I breathed on my own now. Each breath a small victory, a quiet rebellion against the child who'd tried to steal them. The handcuffs had clicked at 3:22, the exact time I'd given him life 40 years ago. Perfect symmetry for an imperfect son. I took one more breath, deep, painful, mine, and let the past go with the exhale. Grace was coming for dinner. We had a company to run, houses to build, life to live. The monitor beside me beeped steadily. Still alive, still breathing, still here. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Your experiences and perspectives make these stories richer for everyone.